right, welcome everybody today to our webinar. It's the end of March. It's our last Wednesday webinar, another one in our series. And we have today presenting with us Cody Muenster from Cultivate Advisors. So let me tell you a little bit more about Cody and why I thought he would be a phenomenal guest webinar presenter today for us. Cody, let me just read you a little bit about his bio. I had to cut it down because there's a lot of accomplishments so far in his young life. It says, add massive value and light up other people's lives, and you can attain anything. It's this motto that has guided Cody into a successful career as an entrepreneur. At the age of only 19, Cody owned his first business when he obtained College Pro Painters. He was still in college when he bought this franchise. That gave him valuable insight into running a business. In his first year, his company generated over 6 figures in revenue, which is a huge milestone for any young entrepreneur, with 12 employees while Cody remained a full-time student. Cody has since built 3 additional successful businesses in the industries of tech, marketing, and consulting, and serves as an advisor for other leaders and small business owners looking to take their business to the next level. Cody serves fellow entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders by delivering what's next in the areas of business development, marketing strategies, and total business turnaround by leading owners and their teams. And that's really what we're going to focus on today, is how to develop your leadership team as you're growing your firm. His specialty is helping people focus on what's most important in their lives and businesses so they can accomplish their most audacious goals and dreams. So Cody is not only a business advisor, but he's a partner at Cultivate Advisors, and Cultivate Advisors is a very large coaching program for entrepreneurs and business owners. And look, Cody, I've said a lot about you already, and let me just welcome you and turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Brett. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited for all of you. We're here in a virtual reality, and my aim is to make sure that this is as engaging as possible. But I really just want to start and just think about the reason why we're here to talk today. And you and I were talking, Brett, about just, your specialty is about bringing people and finding really talented people that you can bring in to teams and companies all across the globe. And you find really talented people offshores, and that's your focus. And then I started asking you the question, right, about, well, how do you help integrate those people into the cultures? Like, how do you take them and really move them? And do you offer anything along that lines? And that's where it's like, your jam is to get really qualified people, but then it's ultimately up to the business, right? Mm-hmm. It's up to the business to then take it and make sure that they're motivated, that they have clear goals, and that they're moving forward, and that we get them integrated into the team. And that's where we kind of said, like, let's bring something where we can bridge that, and we can help provide something that it's above and beyond what you're currently offering. And that's what we're here to do today. So as I'm going through this, I have some things that I'd like to cover with you so that you get the most benefit from this. But I really wanted you to know, like, you're going to have stuff that you're probably going to say, like, I want to take action on that. I have some suggestions and resources at the end that will go through in more context. But just for today, I'm going to go through a couple of slides of information. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have some Q&A if we still have time. And just know that I'll go through this and I'll take any questions at the end. Sound good?
Nice. I'm sure it sounds great with everybody, Cody. So we're excited to see what you have.
Thanks, my friend. So, we're here to develop your leadership team. I'm going to give you 3 kind of keystone ways to develop your leadership team. Those of you who have employees, to free up your time, and so that you can ultimately accomplish your goals, the things that you're going after. And when I think about the purpose of this conversation, it's to really support get staffed up clients and community to develop and motivate their staff while having a financially rewarding business that grows and thrives. But here's the outcome I'd like to help you with, is to make sure that you get one idea, seek one idea today of significant value that you're going to implement and always remember. Just keep it simple. When we're on these webinars, I see a lot of this information being shared, but if you can find that thing that actually makes a difference that you actually take action on, it's a win. So a little bit about me. Brett shared my background. I won't go into too much of that. I think the biggest thing that I just wanted to share with this is, I started in our company, I advise business owners full-time. We have over 130 employees in our company. When I joined our company and became a partner, I really was was passionate about helping business owners, really scale their business at all different levels. Because when I started at 19, 20 years old, running my first franchise, it was a really like incredible learning experience. Being at that age, going through school, and hiring people to help me build a business was this like really great opportunity. But I was fortunate enough to be in the top 10% of the producers of that franchise. There was 200 other franchisees the time I owned that business. And at the end of the first year, it was great because I was in the top 10% of all franchisees. But what was significant about that is I remember this moment where I got this award for being one of the top producers and they gave me this award for outstanding achievement. I'll never forget this. I looked at the award, and in that moment, after my first year running my business, I looked at that award and I realized right then I had to quit. Because what I didn't tell you is that, I don't know if maybe some of you can relate to this, I was miserable running my business. I was overworked. I was working over 80 hours a week. I never saw my friends and family because I was consistently working in the business. My girlfriend ended up breaking up with me because she felt like that was the only thing that I cared about at that time. And I was constantly stressed out. I don't know if you've ever felt that way running a business. So I thought running a business was great. I'm going to hand in, go ahead and one and done and move on to something bigger and better. And what ended up happening is I had the vice president of our franchise reach out to me and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What are you doing? Why would you just do this for only 1 year?" And I told him some of the things that were going on. And he's like, "Okay." It's like, "I'll tell you what, how about this? If you come back this next year, what is it that let's just say you did, what would you really, really want?" And what was significant about that question is I had never really thought about it to that depth, being only 19, 20 years old. And I told him some things that were really important to me. And I shared with him and he said, "Okay, I'll tell you what, if you come back, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to mentor you for the entire year. And my promise is to help you get those things, but you have to be coachable and willing to like take some direction." It's like, "But I will be committed to your success if you're willing to come back." So I ended up thinking about that for a little while and ended up coming back. And what was interesting is I came back and he mentored me for the following year, and some just incredible things took place during that year. I ended up working less than 30 hours a week. I doubled my income. I traveled for 5 weeks out of the year, bringing friends and family members on pretty extravagant vacations at that point in my life. And I had this sense of like, holy cow, this is what it's like to really own a business. And I just got the itch of just like, that was a cornerstone. And over the next 15 years, I scaled 3 different companies, exited. And when I joined Cultivate, I had this passion to like really help business owners like grow and thrive. And some of the things I just, really care about that, ultimately we're going to be talking about, staff and motivating them to peak performance and some things that I'm going to share with you in a moment. But I just want you to know, it's like, I know each of you has different goals and aspirations. So you got to think about the business. Like we're just talking about one phase of the business today, when there's truly all different types of segments that we got to be thinking about. And that's our focus, is to think about everything. But today's content is going to be focused on like leading your team and how you can really help them accomplish what you want to see. And my aim is to really provide as much engagement as enthusiasm through this process. All right. So our mission is to really help passionate entrepreneurs and you achieve financially rewarding businesses that grow and thrive. As we're talking about this, I share this. I think I told you this, Brett, but I share this because over the last 3 years, we've been on the Inc. 500 and 5,000 list. And I don't say that to brag, actually. The reason why I share this is a lot of people ask us, how did you achieve this? Like, we have these types of events so that we can share our strategies and tools that have effectively worked for us, and so that they can ultimately work for you. And really how we think about this is we do this and make sure that businesses have a balanced approach. And this is like, if you're looking at this icon right now, this is like to emulate a propeller. This is our business methodology of propelling businesses forward. So when you think about your business and how we need to think about all phases of it, in the beginning, in the middle, right here, you can see the financial engine. Or if you think about it like the engine to a plane, like that's their financials of your business, or like where you really got to spend. You need to know how to manage that engine. But then from there, you have your sales targets, like how many sales do you need to hit your financial goals? How many leads do you need to hit your sales targets? Who do you have to recruit on your team to help you achieve all those things? And how do you lead them to performance? And then, oh, by the way, interlaced between all of this is productivity of time, as you can see on the calendar, and then a little gear icon is for efficiency within productivity. And how efficient are you through each of these phases through the business? And that's really like making sure that you have these phases all laid out in your business. Because isn't it true, Brett, what happens if if you're in a propeller, if you're flying in an airplane and just one of the propellers of the airplane is bent or damaged, what's the reality of that flight going to feel like?
Yeah, the whole plane is not going to be comfortable.
You're going to be probably pretty terrified. And sometimes it's like we go through this business, but I mean, this is truly the difference as we get into this topic, that I just want to like think holistically, because the reality is that the businesses that survive long term, like really multi-decades, are the ones that are constantly improving all phases of the business. It's not just urgent, put out the fire moment. They're proactively thinking monthly, weekly, how do I improve each phase of the business? And they're bringing in your teams to do those things. And I know that that's something that's like, you're clearly doing levels of that. So it's like, we want to start thinking about how to help people on this call today to really just think about like, we're wearing different hats at all times. I mean, isn't this true? It's like, when we're talking to business owners, people are feeling overwhelmed, but it's like, we all have to wear these hats. I mean, when you think about which one you're really comfortable, isn't it true? Like some of them you're really comfortable wearing. And then others, you're probably thinking like, oh, they're probably pretty dusty. I haven't worn that hat in a while. No, our purpose is to really make sure, as we're talking today, is that we come in and we help you like organize and balance these hats and to pick up the ones that you need to be wearing at the appropriate times. But here's what we're going to cover. We're going to go through how to motivate your staff. Number one, we're just going to talk about like all phases of new employees to tenured employees, how to integrate those new employees into your culture once you get them, how to develop then your staff into future leaders of the company and future succession planning. Start really thinking about that. Even if you're not, some of you might be thinking like, hey, I'm way far away from succession planning. That's okay. Some of you might be actually thinking about, I'm planning on exiting in the next 3 to 5 years. Well, if that's you, then it's like, these are all applicable tools, but the only decision you need to decide today is, what's that one takeaway you're going to take action on? Okay. So with the webinar chat, definitely put things in the chat that kind of stick out to you. We're going to have a couple of polls, and we're also going to have some post-webinar dialogue. So just make sure that you're staying with me. I want to make sure that we answer your questions if we can in the front of this call. So at the end though, make sure that you really stick around until the end today, because just for sharing your number one takeaway, we're going to give you some really incredible resources. For example, I can't cover everything in depth in the next 50 minutes or 40 minutes that we have. So we're going to give you some guided worksheets. We're going to give you some ability to have some free advising time if you want to experience what that's looking like. And also, this is all courtesy of Get Staffed Up. We're partnering with you today and Brett's company to really just bring some value, bring some resources. And all we're looking for from your side, if you want these things, is we want to hear how valuable this was. And also we want to hear your biggest takeaway. All right. Okay. Content is going to be for all stages of whatever business that you're in, from hustler, if you're just kind of solopreneur, but you're hiring your first, when we think about an experimenter, what that truly means is you have a couple of employees that you're probably still trying to find your routine of like, what is your target market and what is the thing that you offer to the world. We see typically visionaries, these stages, or these are people that have, they have a handful of employees, maybe 10, 20 employees, and you're really starting to figure out what direction you want to go with the business. And then if you're in the systemizer phase of the business, you have a pretty good cash machine that's being printed right now, and you have teams of people that are leading departments. And then if you're an influencer, you might be joining us and you're like the Tony Robbins. In effect, you're just going around, you're talking to groups of people, you're trying to find the people or the things that are really going to help drive a lot of leads and direction, doing podcasts, that type of thing. So I just want you to think about for a moment, like, what stage are you in and what stage do you want to get to? Because this is ultimately going to be helping speak in for perspective. 80% majority of businesses never get out of this experimenter phase, meaning they never get to these phases of the business. Do you know why that is, Mr. Brett?
My theory on this, it's kind of like the valley of death is you can really hustle your way to about the $1 million mark, which I think is experimenter, but you don't transition to visionary by bringing on, you said 10 to 20 people, right? In my experience, at least with law firms, people get stuck in like from transitioning to doing everything to being the full-time recruiter and building the team, like acting as the general manager of the team who's recruiting, hiring, et cetera, who's building the team and who hires the coach to run the team.
Yes, very well said. So it's like they're doing all those things. It's the ability to advance through these stages is your ability to develop people. You need to like really start thinking about, this is why people burn out at this phase and they don't get through these next ones, because they hire some people, they don't have a great experience, or they've had an employee, you know, that's been with them for a while, or a couple of people, and then they exit and they're like, how are we going to fill those shoes? We need to have like some structure and frameworks around how do we, if we lose someone, we don't have a business that's set up, because we see it all the time. Businesses are set up in this place where it's like they have one key person and then they lose that person, and it's like they basically have to start all over again. And we need to build you up so you're not that isn't. You need to be interchangeable with people, because people are people. We all have different like aspirations at times. It doesn't mean people leave because of it's like a negative situation. They want to go on to something bigger and better. And I think if you can prime your business to really being ready for their leaving your company at some point, it's just a better way to think. It's like, obviously we want to retain these people for a long period of time. But if we can already anticipate that they're probably going to go on to do something else, and then we can have the backup plan of how we're going to infuse them in, that's setting us up for long-term success. So we want to get into how we're going to do some of those things. So the stuff that I'm about to share with you, just do some of these things. This is not going to be rocket science. So here's one of my first questions for you. Are your goals clearly defined? And are you happy with the progress you are making towards them? That goes for yourself and for your company, right? This is the most talked about of all things, but it is probably one of the most simply like overlooked things of just, do you have these things written down and are they documented? And do people actually know them within your company? And then question number 2 is, are you living a life that you wanted by owning a business? We believe, as we start thinking about how to help, you know, it's one thing to have a successful company. You know, that goes back to the story that I felt like I had a pretty successful company at 20 years old, you know, being in the top ranks, but I was not happy. So are you happy with where you're at? Because isn't it true the business should be a vehicle to get you the lifestyle that you want? That's what we think about it. And sometimes running a business can kind of feel like a roller coaster at times, especially during a pandemic, when you have cash flow challenges, sales targets that you got to constantly hit. You're leading people and you're living, and isn't it true? Now we're living in the newest era called the Great Resignation. Today, my aim is to really just help change your mindset to the great progression, Because when I think about owning a business, like this is where I want us to be. I mean, whether you relate to this image or not, it's this feeling of accomplishment and peace in what you've created. So let's start off, and we're going to talk about way number 1 to really accelerate your team and achieve the goals that you want to is how to motivate employees, and we're going to start with new employees. Some of you might have some new employees through Get Staffed Up that you're integrating in, or maybe you have a new person coming in that you're looking at hiring at some point over the next 6 to 12 months. So let's talk about how we can really accelerate and integrate them into your team. So we're going to launch the first poll, and the first poll, go ahead, Teresa, and launch that. So here's the questions. What is your current onboarding and training plan when you have someone come into your company? Is it number one, is your current onboarding and training, is it very organized with clear written documented 30, 60, 90 day and ongoing coaching and reviews that you do? Is it number two, do we have ongoing coaching and reviews, but are not regular scheduled, time stamped? Or are we getting them in the role, learning on the fly and coaching as needed? Please be as honest as you can. I'm going to give you another moment, a couple more responses, just to see where you're at today. And then we'll tailor some of the messaging around that. So I'll give you one or two more of you if you have that option. All right, it's a pretty close race. If you want to go ahead and launch that, Teresa. Looks like we have a split result where number one, some of you on the call, it's very organized, which I'm super impressed with. You have 30, 60, 90 development plans. And then the other portion of you is have coaching and reviews, but they're not really regular scheduled times. And then some of you, obviously, thank you for your honesty. We get them into the role and it's like coaching as needed. Let's just figure it out. Well, we're going to be able to accomplish a couple of things on this. So share the results. There we go. And here's how we really got to think about in motivating employees. So do you have clear goals? We talked about, do you have clear goals for both the company and the employee? So when they start, a lot of times we find is there's a gap in between one of those two segments. Either the company doesn't have clear goals that they're sharing with the employee, or they are, and it's when the employee starts, there's not clear goals for the employee. So each employee needs goals that align with the vision, which then are measured, they are measured towards. Again, not rocket science, but are you really doing that? So after this first step is accomplished, then we got to start taking it to the next step, which is customizing incentives for your company for them. All right, question for you. Do you actually know what is the most important thing to each of your staff members? And you might say, I have other people in that are leading certain departments. That's great. Do those people know? Because what we ultimately want to do to have truly motivated people is we just want to make sure you know what motivates them. I mean, isn't it true too? Like people are motivated by these three things, and there's more there, but typically it's time. So especially in this day and age with the pandemic and what happened is, people wanted more flexibility than ever. Number two, money. And then three is purpose. Purpose. They need to have purpose in their work. But we want to create and look at all the bonuses and do this in a dynamic way. So when you think about like customizing incentives to your team, you want to build a deep kind of bench of all the different benefits that you could have, because then we want to customize and with when you build out all these incentives, and my goodness, you could have so many different incentives. Like if you own, for example, I was working with a law firm that was really thinking about how do they just give more PTO time when like certain benchmarks are hit per week. I had another person that was offering incentives around like cash incentives. And this is again for another law firm, because I know most people on this call could be with a law firm, but doesn't have to be attainable. One of the attorneys was very specific on making sure that there was no errors in the paralegal's work. And they were frustrated because one of the main attorneys was struggling, and it was just constant rework that, when an attorney bills out $300 plus an hour, you can imagine how much time that's costing if you're having to do that each week. So we just did is we set up an incentive plan around just how do we get that person to perform when if there's no errors or there's a certain benchmark of like threshold that needs to be met, the person gets a monetary bonus for that. And they get to start the week with that bonus so that they know it's ultimately up to them. Like we're willing to pay you this much, but if for every error that's happened, the bonus goes down. So they already earn it. So that's just one example of just how like you can have, but we went through a period where this paralegal, for example, was having like a lot of daily errors that were getting submitted in some of the documents. And to maybe not surprise you, but maybe to the surprise of like how radical this was, We went from having probably 8 or 9 like kind of critical errors that we were identifying each week to 1, like 1 or less per week, because we have like some type of an incentive like this. So here's what we want to do with this is we just want to talk to each individual and make a customized package for what's most important to them. So if you're writing something down, we want to find what are the top 3 things for each employee that they care about the most in priority, 1 to 3, and what are those goals going to do to like, and to help motivate them to performance. If you know them and you have a plethora of options, 401ks, perks, time, purpose, like all these different things, it can make a really, really big difference on how you go from there. All right, good. The next thing I'm going to talk about though, is probably one of the most overlooked opportunities to have truly motivated employees. And this goes for new employees, and that's the significance of the first day. The significance of the first day. So when people have the first day with you at your company, question for you, how many of them do you think go home and say, wow, that was so incredible. And I'm so glad I decided to join this company, and really are sharing that with as many people as possible? How many of them do you believe, like within how you train and onboard, are you creating that type of experience? I know like the significance of this first day is a big one. So here's what I want to do is I want to ask another, we're going to launch a second poll real quick. If you're being honest with yourself, go ahead, Teresa, and launch that. What are your new employees saying after their first day working for your company? Are they saying, wow, this is incredible? Number 1, I'm so glad I joined this company. I'm confident I made the right decision. Number 2, do you think they're saying, hey, there's lots of paperwork and policy review? It seemed like the typical first day. Number 3, I was bored at times and it was lacking engagement, probably nothing to brag about. Or number 4, it's not what I envisioned and had hoped for, but I know it's still early. Which one do you think, if you're really being honest with yourself? Leave a couple more.
If you scroll a little bit, there's another option. Not looking forward to going back tomorrow. Did I make the right choice?
Yes, thank you. Which I'm hoping that actually that one doesn't get checked, but people are being honest. Nice. I get some of you that are saying that's like lots of paperwork. So there's the standard there, but the actual winner is, wow, this is incredible. I'm so glad I joined this company. Go ahead and launch that, Teresa. Nice. That's pretty good. Now, usually when I have this conversation with people, I mean, for those of you, I'd be curious on just like how you're orchestrating that, because I really want you just to take advantage of that opportunity. Because truthfully, the first day has this moment to really create this amazing experience for people. I mean, first impressions are happening all the time in our days. You know, people say it's like when you walk into a store or you walk in and like you meet someone new, they're pretty much making it like a full on, judging a book by its cover within the first 7 seconds. So what we want to think about is like, how do you make that so transformative? Because here's what the first day does. If you can have them think about how you want them to feel and how you want them to think. If you think about them as like a beloved house guest, when they come in and you really make them feel significant, and you think about like, how do you welcome them to the team? Do you actually take the time to introduce them to people? Are you actually thinking about like, how do you create excitement when they're coming in with you? Are you showing them the path ahead for the next week to 2 weeks and like what the development is going to be about? And could you even take it a step further to leave them with a gift? Especially if you have any employees, Brett, something that we think about a lot with people is just saying like, the reality is people are going to have not so good days, right? Depending on their mindset, people are going to be like, no, like I'm a philosopher, like everything's great. Unless you're operating on that level, some people are going to go home. And if they have a beloved at home, a significant other, what's going to happen was they're going to share the details of that day with their significant other, like anyone else would. But what we want to do as people, like part of this call today, is we want to like orchestrate so that conversation of the spouse is got our backs. And here's what I mean you can do. Imagine if you had the first day where people are going through and you're creating this ultimate welcome experience, but then let's say you part them with a gift, and that gift could be like, a gift to a restaurant or something like that to share with their significant other. It's one little thing that you can do for them to be all of a sudden a co-champion for them to be part of your company. Because on the days that they are not doing so great for whatever reason, and they go home and they have those conversations, if you can get the significant other person to say, well, at least, yeah, but they really care about you. They really, remember the time that they bought you the gift certificate or whatever that might be. It's like, we want to bring that to the forefront, and all we got to do is stay ahead of the game. The significance of the first day is all about that. And it's probably one of the most overlooked. I tell you this story because we work with a lot of people that, the reality is of running a business, it's not all that detailed and well thought out at all phases of the business. But if you can get the first day and week orchestrated and dialed out of like how you want them to feel, and how do they have clear goals and where they want to go, it will buy you so much time on any mistake that you make. It's just mind blowing all the time. But if you start the first day and they have it was okay, you're already setting yourself up for like a critical moment where it's like, you don't have like the buy-in, but we want to make sure that that's really, really powerful. Okay. So next up is we're going to talk about number 2. How do we really make the most out of your culture? And I was asked this question. This was probably a couple of months ago. I was talking with my partner, our CEO, Casey Clark of our company. And this is, we were reflecting back when we went from, really scaling, in the early years when I was, 4 or 5, number 5 in the company, to where we're at now. We're at over 130 employees. And he asked me this question, and he said, Cody, what business are we in? What business are you in? And I said, small business advising. He's like, yes, but what business are you really in? And he said, you're in the business of continuously developing people. That's what business you're in as soon as you have an employee. So how do we take that now and actually change that? Because this needs to be a mindset for us. Once we change the mindset and you understand that you have to constantly be developing your people and integrating them into your culture, this is when the shift really tends to happen, where people can have people stay with you longer. You're hiring more. And we have to understand that the reality is each role really matters, right? But people want to know that their work matters. More than ever, the studies and the research is coming out that it's not about money anymore. It's more about time flexibility and all these other perks. But most importantly, does each of your people, you might know it, but does each of your people know the significant purpose of their role? There's a difference between, this is always the thing that's the reality. It's when you look at the employees for Walt Disney, for example. Walt Disney is a great one because real quick, the reality is if you take the janitors that work for Walt Disney, it's these people, if you've ever been to Walt Disney and you go to the bathroom, they're like the happiest people. they're so happy. And then if you see a janitor at another company, are they necessarily as happy? But what's the difference? The difference is the person at Walt Disney sees the impact that they make. They know they're creating an experience at every step of the way. They understand that they are more than just cleaning toilets. They are really here to make a significant difference. And that's what we need to make sure, that each of your people know the significant difference. And there's a resource on this that I'm going to help you just provide a dialogue of how you can go to your employees to make sure that they know what is the, if you haven't asked that question, by the way, it's take the time to ask that. It's a great question. Hey, Susie, hey, Brett, like, do you know the significance of your role? Like, what do you think the significant purpose is? You'll probably be amazed at the answer because everyone's going to say something a little bit different unless you spend a lot of time on this. But when I think about company culture, the second kind of pillar with this is happy employees. Okay, we all want happy employees, but do you actually recognize the real significance of that achievement? Research by Oxford University found that happy workers are 13% more productive, and that goes for you as well as the owner, by the way. Question though is, what would 13% more productivity out of you and your employees actually mean to your company? Think about that for a moment. Every day, this is like an extra 10+%. You come to work and it's like, are we really cultivating, like making sure that we're shifting to infuse that happens? But here's some ways that we can actually like continue the company culture. No doubt everyone on this call has probably heard about core values. I would be curious, throw it in the chat, how many of you have core values? Because we're going to ask that in a second. But here's an example of just like, are you using your core values, if you have them, for hiring? Are you using your core values during reviews that you have with your people? You can actually use them as a scorecard and actually see, hey, have each employee rate themselves and how they're living out the core values, start integrating them. Are you using them on team huddles and monthly meetings that you might have, or retreats, and actually talking about the impact that you make with these? And these are the standards. And are you truly living these out? I was working with a law firm owner, and I remember us talking about this, and it's like, he's like, yeah, these are some of the standards that we live by, but it's like nothing was written and documented. And he kind of just blew it off like it wasn't that big of a deal. And I was like, and then until we had a conversation where he lost an employee, and the reason why that employee left was it was nothing like the person sold themselves in the interview, and it was like really impacting this person. Like, I mean, extreme. Like, this person was the person that I was working with that runs this law firm was really ticked for, like, because of how this person exited, was nothing like they thought they were on the interview. And I just started talking about, it's like, but did they know any of your values when they got hired? And he's like, no. What do you think the difference would have been if they knew what your core values are? And here's what I mean by, like, are you using them in the interview process? We actually take the time to list out our core values. And on every first interview we have with people, we let them know what they are. And then we ask them essentially, which values stick out to you as something that really resonated with you, and maybe which ones didn't. Because what these serve is the ultimate standards that you live by. And Brett, you have really good core values on this year, because I think you have an acronym for yours, right?
Yeah, I don't know if acronyms. Well, it's the ABCDEs of our core values. That's how we remember them. Yeah.
Thank you. And why do you have those? Like, what have you seen as the value of having those out? How do you use them?
So we use them when we are recruiting, when we're interviewing, when we're hiring, when we're retaining, when we're promoting, when we're potentially firing. They are everywhere in our culture.
Okay, so you clearly have used that. They're a living, breathing thing. And that's a great example. I mean, for all your customers or your network, I think just talking with Brett and just emulating how you have, if you're using those, great. Because I just want to ask a question of just, overall, we'll launch the third poll, but are you using these? Because when you think about your culture, as soon as these become real, we'll go ahead and launch this. Are you using them? Yes. Some of you. So the question is, are you using them? Do you have core values? Number one, and does everyone know them? And are they integrated into your company? Number two, we have values and reference them from time to time. Number three, we created our values when we first started, but haven't looked at them since, or we don't have them. Okay, awesome. Most of you have them. That's already being used and integrated into your company, which is fantastic. There's a couple of you that aren't. And I think the biggest thing to just really keep in mind with this is, as soon as you use them as the standard, I think one of the hardest things that business owners and leaders have to do is, when people aren't performing well. Okay, back to this whole idea. when people aren't performing well, or let's say they go against one of the values, if you're not using this, something that I would consider is there's a lot of sometimes pressure on leadership and owners where they have to go ahead and they have to like tell someone, hey, you're not really being respectful to a colleague, right? Or you have these like challenge, we all have these crucial conversations, right? That we have to have at times that are just, we probably don't want to have them, but we have to address certain situations with staff. When you have values that are being, constantly integrated into your company, you can have people rate themselves. So for example, if we're doing a review and you need to talk about a sticky situation with somebody, it's saying like, Steve, hey, I know this conversation that you had with, and this is an HR question, so bear with me, but it's like, I know that you had this, it's like, how would you rate yourself on just how much respect you brought to the situation when you were talking with this person during this time? The difference to change your ability to just have all of a sudden like values that are being integrated into the conversation versus you having to say like, hey, it comes from you, Brett, where it's just saying like, I don't think you were really being respectful to so-and-so. It takes it off your shoulders and it puts it in the company's, like, this is how we operate. And if you can use those in those situations, or your leaders can use those in your situations, it takes a lot of pressure off them to help them continue to accelerate people to the next level, right? The third one on company culture is, what rituals do you have? What rituals do you have? So some of the things that really to consider are, do you have team huddles? Do you have employee lunches? I'm going to stop sharing. I'm just going to share the results of the poll. Sorry, get that off there. So if I want to give you some ideas around rituals. And what do I mean by rituals? These are the things that create culture. And everyone's got some, like, there's some pretty unique ones out there, but we are a virtual company. Your Get Staffed Up hires virtual, like really amazing virtual assistants. It's like, we needed to figure out, knowing that we were an all virtual company, how we needed to retain our staff. We needed to bring some type of a social environment to it. So we do have team huddles. We have that every month, every week. That's probably not surprising, but how well are you doing that consistently? Number two is we have employee lunches, especially new employees, to just be proactively scheduling virtual lunch with people goes a long way. New employee onboarding, something to consider if you're not already doing this. What we do is every new employee that comes into our company, we have where we just invite the whole staff together and we do a virtual social. So those people that are more tenured with the company can talk about, stories, and we can share and we can get to know our colleagues if you're not meeting in person yet. And then also just to celebrate wins and achievements. On our team huddles that we have, we always are talking about what's going well, like what's a company win, and you're hearing like how other people stepped up to support each other. And it's something that's such not rocket science again, but are you really doing that? Because people need to be reminded, and this is so true. It's like when you scale businesses, how many people are really successful at their business, but they're just really unfulfilled because they're never celebrating the progress that they make. Tony Robbins talks about, progress equals happiness. And if you're not celebrating right now as a company, your wins and your achievements, and they don't have to be these, it's probably obvious if you aren't, that you're celebrating like big milestones, but I'm talking about on like a weekly basis. How do you have communication channels built out so that you're really having your people talk to each other and like celebrating the little things consistently on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Goes a long, long way. So last couple of things here, but we want to now start shifting into, well, how do we develop these future leaders and start thinking about succession planning? And here's some of the core elements, depending on where you're at in your business, is you got to have an organizational chart. When you think about your org chart, it's got to be like a clear path for that employee's growth and development. What opportunities do you have for each person in your company, and are they visually laid out? For example, here at Cultivate Advisors, you start for example, we start people, if they're in a business advisor role, they start advising a book of clients who own other businesses, and they work on like building a mature book of clientele. Well, after they've done that for a while, they then become a senior advisor because they've been able to retain clients, help them hit their goals and milestones. Well, then after you become a senior advisor, that creates a bonus opportunity for you, but then you also can get to be a mentor. Like you can mentor other advisors if you want to continue to do that, but there's also value to us as an organization to continue that growth and development. But then after that, they can become a cohort leader of people. And they can even become potential to earn shareholder or partnership, if your partner as a law firm. So the reality is, if there's not a clear visual or a timeline, here's what's important with this one. If you haven't yet done it, I would like an action that I invite you to write down is to write down what is the future succession vision of the business look like? And then what are the people that we're going to need in each seat to help build that out? And if you're not sure on how to do that, that's what we do with a lot of our people, is just to start with ideal realities in the future and then help them work backwards on that plan. But if you don't have that clear visual for your employees, or there's a timeline and like how they can develop, the reality is if there's no time, there's no visual around that, they don't have hope. They really don't have hope and like how they're going to get there. And that's why a lot of people leave, is because they're underappreciated. They don't see where they can continue to excel, and they don't know that what their purpose really is. And those are three really, really critical components. All right, so let's review. We covered a lot, and just want to go through we talked about how to like motivate employees. And so there's the element of just what can we do on the first day? How do we continue to get them infused into your onboarding and like training? If you don't already have the 30, 60, 90 day, you saw some of the people on today's call really had that. And I'm sure they have, like, the reason you want to have 30, 60, 90 day development plans for your people is because there's a path forward. There's a measurement on this person's success. And then we talked about company culture. How do you continue to like create social environments, celebrating wins, all those types of things to keep people really motivated? And then you truly got to have this mindset of developing people. You are not just in the business of being a law firm or in a service business. You are now with staff on the team. You have to be intentional about consistently coaching people. And that's really my hope, is also that people leave here really motivated. And one of the things that you can do to take action is really do a couple of things. If you don't have this already, number one, start it. Pick one person in your organization or the next person you plan to hire, and just decide at a basic minimum, what's your 30, 60, 90 day onboarding plan and milestones with them. Think about it like a video game, right? There's clear levels that you got to beat in order to advance to the next one. We want to create a measurement of, is it a pass fail? Pass fail. What do I mean by pass fail? There should be something that they accomplish at each of those seasons of the business, because it takes someone at least a season, if not longer, to integrate themselves into your business. So if you have a milestone along each way, you can measure their progress. The second one is to create our future organizational chart. We want to have those things on there and just like start creating what that ideal state looks like. And, there's all kinds of things you can go and Google. If you don't have like a really pretty org chart like the one we showed you, you can find and Google that in like a matter of seconds. But it's like, you got to start with like that path and just getting clear for yourself as like the owner and leader of this company. And then really identify and integrate core values if you already have them. For those of you that have them, great. Think about what's one step you can do to integrate them. And then identify where your people are at and what they truly care about, have that conversation with them. Because, when I think about people that like other law firm and attorneys that we've worked with, this is an example of a real client of ours that I work with. It's like when I first met Matt, he's a CPA and an attorney. He was really overwhelmed, with his schedule. He wasn't earning his income. He didn't have enough free days. His people weren't excelling to where they wanted. And then when we worked with them, the interesting thing is like when you work on these things consistently, you can make tweaks. You don't necessarily have to overhaul all aspects of the business. It's just taking consistent progress that you want to see happen. But to a lot of things is when you're able to work on these things, Matt was able to transform his business over the last 3 years. So what we want to give you is just some like really great resources today. And here's what we're going to do. I want you to go hop in the chat box right now. Amy's going to paste a link to a form. And we're going to give you some things. I just want to like whatever you feel like can really support you. But number one, if you want this, then just take 2 minutes. This is really important for both us and for Brett, because he wants to make sure that if we do something like this again in the future, we want to know how valuable and what's sticking with you. So if you share with us your top takeaway and what you want, we're going to give you access to these things, which is free advising time. If you want access to an onboarding and planning document, we have a document that you'll be able to actually easily plan out the milestones of before, during, and after for ongoing coaching and development of those people. If you want to have access to that, we have that for you. We also have a link to a really impactful employee engagement video. It's 2 minutes. If you just watch this one video, you'll probably get one of the top resources available by Patrick Lencioni. For those of you who are Patrick Lencioni fans, he wrote the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. This insight alone will probably help you really just think about where you're currently at with your employee development and how you can really take it to the next step. And then we also run a conference called Catapult. We work with over 500 businesses a month on a subscription program, and we have a large community of business owners. And coming up in May, on May 26th, we do a 2 to 3 hour virtual event where we invite all of our clients and guests to come and just learn from an incredible speaker, but also something that you can really take action with. You can actually invite your team to this. It's a really unique conference. We're happy to give you tickets to that just for free and being part of this. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and click that. Please fill out what was your biggest takeaway? How useful was today's workshop? And then which of the resources are you interested in? And then what might be 2 categories might be your biggest challenges? And then after you submit, if you want to have time to talk with, there's a person on the call today. Her name is Stephanie. Stephanie is someone that is going to make sure that you can schedule a free 30-minute call with her. She'll be able to actually connect you with an advisor that on our team that she feels would really be helpful for the things that you want to improve in towards your goals, whatever that might be. You can actually schedule that call after you submit that if you want to take immediate action on that. We do have that ability today as well. So Brett, I know that you have a few minutes. If there's any questions that you have, give a few minutes.
Yeah. So first of all, Cody, I want to say thank you. I could listen and interact with this kind of content all day long. A lot of your questions, we've implemented, some similar things to you, because I've been eating stuff like this up for years now. And it just makes companies, which matters to me, so much more fun when you're so thoughtful about the employee experience and having happy team members and happy employees. And my biggest takeaway was I thought we did a really good job with our virtual culture here at Get Staffed Up, but we don't have new employee socials. So my biggest takeaway is, at the rate we're growing, a month later, you don't know 10 new people on the team, and we need to do something about that. So I love that idea for new employee socials.
It's a good one. And that's the biggest gap. People want to feel like they need to build that social community, and we need to do it fast. People are just like, hey, they're out on their island. We just jam away at our computers in our offices, but are they really getting that sense of community, and how fast can you accelerate that? It's a good one.
So look, please, everyone fill out the form. We'd love to have you tell us your biggest takeaway. See if you need help. Cody has been nice enough to offer a one-on-one session for anybody who wants to take him up on that and his team. And I really would encourage that. Cody, I know you have some stuff you're going to email out to everybody. Teresa, we also, I think, have some materials that we've worked with Cody on, and just trying to add some more value on our end. I do have to sign off, and I know that, I don't know, Cody, if you want to stick around and do a little bit of Q&A. Sometimes we have people ask questions, sometimes we don't.
Sure.
It's almost an hour in, and we already thank people for an hour of their time, because that's a really nice thing that people give us. Hopefully we gave good value. So just want to thank you and your team once again, Cody. And if there's any questions, guys, please pop that in either the chat or the Q&A, and I'll turn it over to you, Cody, one last time. Just in addition to the forum, how can people get in touch with you? And if there's anything else you want to kind of sign off with.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. I appreciate the time and the option. I'll stick around for a few minutes. If there's got any Q&A, you can email us, and go ahead and email us over. You can go to cultivateadvisors.com. Otherwise, you can email me directly, Cody at Cultivate Advisors, and follow up on any of the resources that you're asking. But again, we'll get that out to the participants on the call today for just sharing with us the takeaway. Otherwise, thanks. It was a great opportunity, and let's see if what questions people have. And Brett, I'll catch you in the next one, my man.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon, Cody.
All right. Thanks a lot. Teresa, is there any questions that come up from that you see in the chat, or anyone? Valerie, thank you. You're welcome very much. What's sticking with you? I'm curious on if anything. If people still I have a few minutes, so if there's anyone that wants to ask a question that can be addressed to them, let me know. Otherwise, I'd be curious on what's sticking with some people.
I don't see any questions in the Q&A section, but let's wait a couple of minutes if someone submits one. Okay. We got one. Any thoughts on gifts for this virtual environment of Get Staffed Up, where we can't deliver things to the staffers? Thanks.
Oh, that's a good one. Who asked that?
Anonymous attendee.
Gifts. I'd be curious on what you do, Teresa. Is there anything that you do for as far as like gifts for your staff?
On December, we had our virtual holiday party with all of our internal employees, and we got a box. It had a thermos, stickers, a sweatshirt that it's very cozy and very nice. It has the logo of the company, and yeah, it was a very cool present. We got it like days before the party, but we were instructed to not open it until we were together in the Zoom meeting. And yeah, that's what we did. Hopefully everyone followed the instructions. I know I did.
Yeah, and I think this is just like a big opportunity to explore. I mean, it depends on what level the question's coming in. Is it for like someone that's coming in new, just like gifts that you want to continue to like give and deliver? I think the reality is you got to remember that, like, if you can brand your company and give people really nice, like a variety of stuff, like wearable swag, right? That consider something that can be like that. The coffee mugs and, those types of things are always nice, but, you might want to do a little bit of digging too, like what really matters to people. If you just say like, hey, I think a Amazon gift card, everyone's going to love that. The reality is that's probably not true. I think you got to think about just like truly what matters. But depending on what it is, I mean, I love the idea. It's like we've had some of the most memorable things have been where it's like we do these social events and these gifts like arrive like right around the social time, like when we're either in person or we're meeting virtually like this. And it's like, now open the gift. And you get to see reactions. People feel like it's a very thoughtful thing. And it's just like one little thing to help. And so I think a lot of times there's so many different audio books, like depending on if people are like big time learners, the biggest tip is find out what your people really like, what matters, and then have either yourself or a committee of one or two people on your team at a minimum, just go around and come up with really unique gift ideas. My executive assistant, Amy, does that a lot for our clients. We find out what things are really important to them, and we just send spontaneous books, gifts, things that really just saying, okay, I think this would really be beneficial to that person.
Yeah. Yeah, we also have their birthdays, and we send like a little gift to their homes, and we try to team building activities where we have contests, and the winner also gets a prize most of the times.
Nice. Cool. Teresa, I got time for one more. Anybody else?
We got one more. What would you say is key for developing a relationship between leaders and employees while remaining respectful in the working relationship?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah. What would you say is key for developing a relationship between leaders and employees while remaining respectful in the working relationship?
Oh, such a good question. The leaders and the employees, I think, is just there's got to be that sense of care for their well-being. It's probably like, it sounds so simple and basic, but if your leaders aren't truly demonstrating care and interest in the goals and the aspirations of the employees, it's probably like the fastest way to speed up the success of that. I hope I'm answering the question in a way that's thoughtful to you, because here's the reality is, you got people that are in leadership positions that are just trying to get through the next thing. And if you can just teach them this tactful human connection, like coaching ability, to really like enhance the experience of how they're really working with each employee that they're overseeing, like from how do you handle like these emotional situations? Are you helping them with psychological and the challenges of like creating buy-in in people? If you get someone that's a poor performer, like how do you have the leadership team like raise their standards and get them up? The reality is that's a really tough thing to do. And if you're not already, like, this is where we have a lot of resources in regards to like impactful communication, leading people dynamically, because we had to create these things, because it's just like, we are so complex. Like the next person that you lead is motivated by different reasons. And it's like, unless they feel like you actually care about their well-being, and you don't have to be best friends with them. And I think there is like a balance of that, by the way. Like you can't, it's like, if that person doesn't understand, it's like you can have a friendly relationship, but it's just like, if they don't look at as you care about them, or what actually motivates them, and if you don't have the training on how to support them, like your first steps are how to like get that really drilled into your team and for yourself about how you can raise your people's games around that area.
Thank you. Thank you, Cody. And the last question is, which is the best approach to understand the needs of our employees? No one-on-one sessions or via Google Forms?
I think it's a combination of both, because I think it depends on what you're seeing. Like if you feel like you've got a culture, maybe you're not, like there's some friction that you're going through, I think an anonymous survey is a good starting point. So you just get people to hopefully transparently share some things that you want to improve or see better as a company. I mean, there is that importance of that. And then there's this next level of just, hey, if you haven't done it, one of the worksheets that we'll provide, I'll give you a really just kind of thoughtful dialogue that's really easy, but it kind of thinks about what's really important to those people. I'd say starting with, hey, do you recognize, like, we care about you. I want to learn a little bit more about what your goals are. Like what's really important to you in this upcoming year? Like, where do you want to see yourself? And then really working with them to really just find out like where they want to continue to grow and develop themselves as well. It's one thing to have goals, but then they're going to have to grow into to achieve. They got to become a different person, in a way. They have to create different skills and achieve different things in order to become where they want to go. So I think the survey combined with the one-on-ones, just what I'd say is don't overcomplicate the one-on-one conversation. I think give them some heads up of, because isn't it true, if you ever schedule, depending on where you're at in your business, if you schedule a one-on-one and you don't typically do that with your employees, like, hey, I wanted to meet with you to talk about some goals and stuff, like they're probably going to be like, uh-oh, what's wrong? So you want to make sure that you're being very proactive and, hey, the purpose of this meeting is to learn a little bit more about how I can really support your growth and development so that you're really excited to like continue to be with us. And I want to like make sure that that's it. If you don't preface that, just understand that people are probably going to be thinking about like, uh-oh, am I in trouble or whatever else? So just make sure you get that in the beginning. And then when you meet with them, have an opportunity where you kind of go through that dialogue of just asking them, and the better you can come prepared, because time is of the essence, especially if you're an attorney. You want to make sure that you have people thinking about some of these things ahead of time, and you don't just like spontaneously ask them, hey, what's your goals? You should ask them, what is important to you? Where do you want to improve? Where do you think we could improve as a company? Ask these things ahead of time, because you just want them to have a better understanding, in summary, that their opinion matters, and that you really are trying to make the best effort of learning more about how to support them. And that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, here at Get Stuffed Up, for example, we have a quarterly conversation, and we have some evaluation about the core values and also open questions. And yeah, that's what we do.
Nice. I love that idea. An open evaluation about your core values. Is that what you said?
Yes, it's like an evaluation of each of our core values. We have 5. It's the A, B, C, D, E. And
Yes.
then we have like around 8 open questions, where one of the questions actually is like, what can the company do for you? Or is there anything you need, any additional comments that you have? So
Nice. Yeah, it's a lot of times when we say, it's like, are you actually asking the people about like what they think are priorities for the company in the upcoming season? You know, a lot of times we as owners of the business, we put a lot of stress on ourselves, I feel like, Teresa, and sometimes about like picking the next objectives and all these other things. And it's like, we've got our blinders on, we have our vision. We want to make sure that vision is very clear and our people are aligned. But at the same time, are we asking for the insights from people on just like, are we living out our core values? Do you think so? Yes or no? What do you think here's our goals for the next season. What do you think should be our priorities? Like, or how can you help us achieve these priorities? Sometimes you want to accelerate the growth of a company. Just tell people clearly what we're looking to achieve, and then ask them, knowing that these are our goals, how could you support us in achieving this? Because you might look at it, Teresa, and say like, hey, oh, that's important. First of all, if you don't know it, that's probably one of the biggest opportunities, is you just need to know what Get Stuffed Up goals are. And then, isn't it true, if Brett came to you and said, hey, these are the things that are really important to us, it's like, Teresa, hey, how do you think you could support us in this? Like, we're running these initiatives, we've got these projects that we're working on, but is there anything that you could see? I want you to take some time just to think about, what could you do to support us? We'd really love your help. When we get there, we're going to have a really cool celebration, but also it's like, I just want to imagine if you did that with all your people, and you had a culture where people were looking at how they can accomplish like these unified goals and achievements. I mean, you're going to get to where you want to go faster. You're going to get different insights from your team, and they're going to be way more bought in. Your team will be way more bought in, especially if they make a suggestion of how they can contribute to that goal or outcome. And if you say, hey, that's a really good idea, like, I think you should run with that. Even if it's not the most perfect idea in your mind as the owner, you're probably thinking like, oh no, they should do it this way. Here's the reality, gang. And I know that you know this is true. If a person comes up with their own idea, and it does help get them to that goal a little bit, and there actually is a direct correlation where that idea could help us accomplish a company-wide goal. The execution of that idea is going to be far more superior than us telling them what they need to go do. So there's a really, really important balance that we got to figure out of how to earn buy-in from our team. And a lot of times people are amazing at this, and a lot of times they aren't. So it's where we got to like get really good at that coaching dialogue, and then how do we motivate our team as well?
I agree. I really love that last question that you suggest to add to that conversation, or maybe a conversation that we can have with the team in the quarterly retreat as well. Thank you, Cody.
Nice. Thank you. Well, gang, if you have any other further questions, feel free to message us. Thanks for letting us hang out with you today. It's been an honor. I really continue to be a blessing in whatever you're doing, wherever you are. And Teresa, thanks. We'll follow up, and we'll make sure that we get the resources to everyone that filled out that form. Again, if you haven't filled out the form that's provided, be sure to jump in the chat, click that link, And we'll connect with you and we'll get you some things that'll really be helpful and useful this year as you continue to develop and accelerate what you want to create. But my friends, it's been an honor. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
The honor was ours. And thank you for everyone that attend this webinar. I hope it was beneficial for you and your business. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Make it a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.